This is the American Abilities Television Network.
AATV is the only national network that features open captioning all the time. AATV, American Abilities Television Network, programming for the deaf and hard of hearing.
This is the American Abilities Television Network.
Hello, I'm Richard McCullough, and this is Medical Update, a program dedicated to medical issues for the deaf and hard of hearing. Our topic today, cochlear implants. For decades, thanks to ever-improving technology, we have devices that are able to allow people with varying degrees of hearing loss to hear sound. We take you to the Rochester Academy of Medicine. This was the former home of Edmund and Carolyn Lyon. The Lyon family have been very involved with helping the deaf and hard of hearing community for over a century. This was the 16th annual Lyon Daughters Lecture featuring Irene Lay and John Christensen, both PhDs and experts in the field. Alice Damanda, a granddaughter of Edmund and Carolyn Lyon, opened the program.
The Lyon daughters, in whose memory this lecture is dedicated, were Elizabeth Lyon Kidd, Carolyn Lyon Remington, and my mother, Linda Lyon Van Voorhis. These bright, active ladies would be especially excited about this evening, and they would feel a real part of it. Their parents, Edmund and Carolyn Lyon, were throughout their lives dedicated to the education of the deaf. In fact, I wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for this dedication. My grandparents met through their work at the Western New York Institution for Deaf Mutes, now known as the Rochester School for the Deaf. My grandfather, Edmund Lyon, was instrumental in the founding of the school in 1876. And my grandmother was one of the early teachers and lived at the school for 17 years. Their daughters, through their understanding and graceful generosity, supported the school throughout their lives. Tonight, we are continuing the Lyon family tradition by welcoming to their home those who are deaf and those who are working toward a better understanding of the deaf and their culture. We are especially proud to have tonight with us Dr. Irene Lee and Dr. John Christensen. Dr. Lee tells me that they have collaborated since 1998, and the fact that they are still collaborating speaks of their genealogy in working together. I will not elaborate on the many impressive accomplishments of our special guests as they are detailed in the program. What we want to know, are cochlear implants cool or not so cool? Let's listen to them and not to me. I'm happy to present John Christensen and Irene Lee.
I'd like to start with a little history about how John and I started working together. You know, personal stories are always the best way to get to know one another, so allow me to let you get to know us. I was at Gallaudet in January of 1992 I didn't know very much about Gallaudet at the time. I was a psychology consultant at New York Hospital in their cochlear implant program. I went in as a consultant, and some parents were coming in to get their children evaluated. I heard about the deaf community, that they were just completely upset that that people wanted to get a cochlear implant. So when I arrived at Gallaudet, I was learning more about cochlear implants, and I walked up to the Research Institute, which is part of Gallaudet University, and I said, I want to do some research on cochlear implants. And then John Christensen, he developed a research project.
He said these parents were concerned about cochlear implants for their children and said, let's get together and discuss this subject. So John and I met, and ever since that day, it has been a wonderful collaboration between, working partners only, let's make that clear. We're just on a working basis, but we get along famously. So we started out, we've heard over and over again about cochlear implants being such a miracle, being such a cure for deaf people, and brought deaf people into the hearing world, and how fantastic and wonderful they are. But at the same time, there were many concerns as well. What are those concerns? I wanted him to help walk me through these various issues and the politics and discuss all of these topics. So that's what we will be doing tonight.
This is Medical Update on the American Abilities Television Network. Our topic today, cochlear implants. We'll have lots more coming up. It is something as old as mankind. It affects people of all races, all religions across the globe. It has been a source of inspiration and creativity. It is hearing loss, and we are the American Abilities Television Network.
This is the American Abilities Television Network.
Welcome back to Medical Update. And now we continue to learn more about the pros and cons of cochlear implants. Here is Dr. John Christensen.
Good evening, and I want to add that I'm really happy to be here too, and it's the first time I've ever visited your wonderful city. I've never been to Rochester before, so it's great to be here, and I've enjoyed your wonderful weather, and wonderful food, and wonderful people, so I'm really happy to be here. And we take full credit for bringing this nice weather with us. First, I want to explain a little bit about cochlear implantation and what it is and what the ear is. I happen to have a laser pointer that I was lucky to get it through the airport security. But anyway, I just want to discuss a little bit about how the ear works. Sound comes in here. There's like a microphone there. Some modes of hearing have some models of cochlear implant, I see. And the sound comes in, and then a process changes to a digital information through the cochlear implant. That's the implant right there. And that's part of the process. In the back of the ear is a battery. And the back of the ear is a battery, and that needs to be recharged on occasion. Every 6 years or so, my battery stays for 12, I'm sorry. my battery stays for about 12 hours, and then it needs to be changed and recharged again. And the outside part is connected to the head. There's a magnet that's implanted there, and it attaches to that magnet. And the digital information is changed to radio waves that cross through the skin to the outside. And it's all required to, you need to have surgery to have this implanted. It's about 70 to 90 minutes of surgery, and then it's all done on an outpatient basis from then on. But now it's pretty easy to, anyway. The sound goes through the radio waves across the skin, and then it's online, what's called an electrodes in the cochlea. And that stimulates the auditory nerve. And that sends it to the brain. So that process, 30 minutes it would take me to explain the entire process, but it happens very, very quickly. It's not slow at all. And I hear exactly what other people are saying at the same time they're saying it. And I should mention that recently I've read about some new research they're planning for the future related to hearing. And they're planning to have a wire that attaches here with electrical energy, fiber optics, that would use to stimulate the electrical energy and uses light. And that's going to be in the future. That will take a while to set up. Now briefly, I want to speak a little bit about the history of cochlear implants. The first one was in France in 1957, and then the United States had one in 1961, the first child that was in LA. And there were several children in France who had cochlear implants in the 70s and 80s, and they started to be performed around the world in adults. In the 1990s, 5,000 cochlear implants, and maybe 90% of them were in adults. In 1995, 12,000 cochlear implants were performed in the world, and it was still a low percentage of children. But 7 years ago, there's been a huge increase. 35,000, I guess, in the year 2000, age 18 and below. And then 2002, 45,000, half of them were children. And in 2007, more than 100,000 cochlear implants were performed. And that's about where we are now. For 2007, a little bit more than half of the cochlear implants in the world are performed here in the US.
Cochlear implants, their history and their use. We'll have much more coming up on Medical Update right after this.
This is the American Abilities Television Network.
AATV is the only national network that features open captioning all the time. AATV, American Abilities Television Network, programming for the deaf and hard of hearing. Welcome back to Medical Update, and now we continue with the topic of cochlear implants. Here is Dr. John Christensen.
Almost all of the cochlear implants are happening in rich nations, not in poor nations. And it's interesting that cochlear implantation, the companies who give a good estimate of the number of people who have them, but no one has any good estimates of the number of people who have stopped using them. 100,000 people maybe have received them, but how many of them are still using the equipment? So briefly, let me talk a little bit about candidates. It's supposed to be you're at least 12 months old before you have this procedure. But often people are younger than 12 months old who get a cochlear implant. And I think that there's some young age, even children under the age of 6 months have received cochlear implants. They should have a severe or profound hearing loss with 90 plus decibel loss, 70 decibel loss for adults. It's preferable if these are people who receive little or no benefit from hearing aids. And for adults, this may not apply to very young children, but based on the word or sentence recognition scores. But for young children, they may not have an opportunity to try hearing aids before they get implanted with a cochlear implant. But they prefer that it's not ideal to implant a child who's younger than 12 months of age. And it's important that the cochlear implant is not going to make the person a hearing person. You cannot make that idea. You need to have a lot of training and therapy and work involved and a lot of effort to be comfortable with the cochlear implant and work on it. It's a lot of motivation required.
This is Medical Update on AATV. We'll have lots more coming up right after this. AATV is the only national network that features open captioning all the time. AATV, American Abilities Television Network, programming for the deaf and hard of hearing. It has been with us since the early times of civilization. It has been the source of ridicule and shame. It has inspired people to great heights. It is hearing loss, and we are the American Abilities Television Network.
This is the American Abilities Television Network.
Hello, I'm Richard McCullough. I hope you'll join us each week for AATV. This is programming for the deaf and hard of hearing. For years, those with a hearing loss have been neglected or ignored by mainstream media and broadcasting. The American Abilities Television Network will address the issues and concerns of collectively 30 million people from coast to coast. Each week, we'll meet interesting people from all walks of life, from parents to educators to artists to officials, you name it, we'll have it. Each week, we hope to inform, to enlighten, to entertain, and to empower. It's more than TV. It's AATV. The next time on Medical Update, we will continue on the topic of cochlear implants with a presentation by Dr. Irene Lee and Dr. John Christensen. We will find out more about their in-depth research on the use of cochlear implants. We will get more insight on the reasons why parents decide on having the operation for their children. We will find out the pros and cons of deciding at what point an infant or very young person should have the surgery. We will also learn about the psychological and cultural implications of their use. There are a lot of questions on the use of cochlear implants, and we will seek the answers. Later, we'll hear many questions by deaf and hard of hearing individuals, and we will learn more about how this famous lecture series came about. All upcoming the next time on Medical Update in our continuing series. This presentation was sponsored by the Lion Daughters Lecture at Rochester Academy of Medicine. Here is more information about the Rochester Academy of Medicine. If you want more information about this or any other program or have a comment, please contact us at www.mirasmedia.net. We'd love to hear from you. That's the show for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.